Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Midlands online worship service. My name is Shannon Sonoris, and I'm the worship associate for this morning's service. If you haven't already, please type into the chat box who you are and who you've brought with you today. Unitarian Universalism is a welcoming and inclusive religion. It encourages us to keep open hearts and minds because our own experience, conscience, and reason are the final authorities in religion. It affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person and that we're all connected to each other and the earth. If you're visiting us today, a special welcome to you. We especially welcome to our service today, the good folks of the Marquette UU Fellowship. Welcome. We're glad you could join us. We appreciate you spending some of your Sunday morning with us. If you have questions, please let us know in the chat box, by phone, or through our Facebook page. If you've been attending for some time and have come to feel that this is your spiritual home and you're considering becoming a member of the fellowship, please contact our Eric Severson, our office administrator, Wendy Altmeyer, or let us know of your interest in the chat box. If you have a chalice or candle at home and would like to join in our chalice lighting remotely, now would be a good time to get that ready. We will be including joys and sorrows this morning as we normally do during the service. You'll want to find the participant icon to raise your hand for that. And we will move on now to announcements. You'll see them on your screen. Next week's service, Why I Come Here, is on Sunday, March 7th at 10:30 a.m. Many of us carry religious baggage from our upbringings. It's not always easy to understand, release, or transform such beliefs or practices. Join fellowship member Charlie Enright as he describes some of his journey and how he committed himself to Unitarian Universalism. Today is Religious Education Sunday. Don't forget to join our virtual RE session today at 1 p.m. led by Shayna Barth. Now, I want to tell you guys, like just a personal, I think that this is awesome. I am so excited about the RE program this year. It's fantastic. Shayna does a great job. If you have any kids or any grandkids or know anybody, or I don't know, maybe you could even jump in there yourself if you can find the link, but it is fantastic. It's all about mindfulness. Absolutely. Okay, I'll move on. Please contact Maxine Gettler if you've tested positive or been vaccinated for COVID-19 and are willing to share that in confidence. Our next virtual workshop, Social Justice and Practice, will be held Saturday, March 6th at 1 p.m. There are 3 seats remaining. Sign up now. This is your last chance for public radio bundling. Drop off your check or contact Tim Wagner today. Patricia Callahan is the new Building and Grounds Chair. As we move into spring, the committee will meet and set up projects for the fellowship grounds only. There will be a Zoom meeting on Sunday, March 21st at 1 p.m. Further information and the Zoom link can be found in the candle flame and on our Facebook Friends group. If you are experiencing financial hardship due to these extraordinary times, please contact Reverend Eric at minister@uufom.org to ask about the Minister's Discretionary Fund. After today's service, please go to uufom.org/Sunday feedback and provide your thoughts about this service. Watch your email for more announcements in our Candle Flame newsletter. During the winter months, the newsletter will be circulated on Fridays. If you wish to submit an article by Wednesday at 5 p.m., be added to our newsletter, or have any questions about any of these announcements, please email Wendy at office@uufom.org. If you have a candle or chalice at home and would like to light it now, please do so. Also, please join us in reading our chalice lighting words today by James Villa Blake. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Now, Eric will share our opening words.
Thank you, Shannon. Our opening words today are titled Here for Beloved Community by Reverend Dr. David Breeden. May I be all in for beloved community. May I be all in despite the challenges. May I be all here for beloved community. May I be ready for the beauty because I long for the possibilities. Yes, I am here for beloved community. May I see the beauty of you in community, of us in community. May we be the beauty of beloved community. May we be the dream together. We join here for beloved community.
Thank you, Eric. With your mics muted, please join the choir of the UU Society of Grafton and Upton, Massachusetts, in singing our opening hymn, Building a New Way. Words and music by Martha Sandifer, arranged by Barry Hall and Bob Nickel.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way.
We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed.
Every need, we can feed. We can feed our every need. Every need, we can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need.
Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, the world will die.
Is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, our world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
Now to dance break. Come on, dance in your chair. Eric gets to dance on his feet. Here was the first verse. We are building a new way.
A new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way.
Getting stronger every day.
Stronger every day. We are building
10 points to Eric, best answer. Now we'll roll through the credits.
All right, our time for all ages today is called Supriya's Bowl from the Broken Tusk by Uma Krishnaswamy. And the illustration there is of Susie Grossman. I've asked Melanie to help me with sound effects today. If we were meeting in person, we would be handing out instruments to various young folks to help us with the sound, but Melanie and I will do it today. Hard times starve people's spirits as well as their bodies. So it was once when the Buddha lived and famine struck the land. The rains failed and the heat of the sun withered the harvest in the field. All around, the cries of pain and hunger could be heard. In the midst of this misery, some people grew greedy and selfish. The Buddha's followers came to him bringing stories of sadness and shame. One merchant in town stabbed another, said one, and all for a bag of grain. I heard of someone who sold their last goat to buy some flour. On the way home, they were attacked by robbers and the flour was stolen, said another. Saddest of all, Lord Buddha, said a third, are the stories of children dying of hunger on the poor side of town because the wealthy have hoarded all the grain and milk and sugar. Call all the people together, said the Buddha. Let us see what we can do to help. So the Buddha's followers called a big meeting. Hundreds of people came. Rich and poor, well-fed and starving, out of respect for the Buddha. They came to hear his words. The Buddha said, citizens of this fair land, surely there is enough food in the storehouses of the wealthy to feed everyone. If the rich share what they have in the lean season, then we will all survive to enjoy the benefits of the next good harvest. The poor and hungry looked hopeful at the Buddha's words, but the rich people grumbled. My granary is empty, lied one. The poor are lazy. Let them work for me. Then they can use the money to buy the food I have stored, said another. There are too many poor people, said a third. Let them go somewhere else. The Buddha sighed when his eye fell upon the people with hearts of stone. Is there no one here, he asked finally, who will take up the job of helping to feed the poor and homeless in these hard times? There was silence. Then a small voice piped up. I will, Lord Buddha. Out of the crowd stepped a child, no more than 6 or 7 years old, a merchant's child dressed in fine silk. "My name is Supriya," said the child, "and I have a bowl to fill with food for the hungry. When can I begin?" The Buddha smiled. "Small child," he said, "your heart is filled with love, but how will you do this alone?" Supriya replied, "Not alone, Lord Buddha, but with your help. I'll take this bowl from house to house and ask for food for the poor. I will not be refused. I know it." Looking at the child with earnest face and shining eyes, even the most selfish among those present grew ashamed. "I have a little grain in my storehouse," said one. "I have some pickled mango from summer's harvest," said another. "My father was poor once. I'm ashamed to have forgotten," muttered a third. Then Supriya took the bowl and went every day from house to house in the rich part of town. Wherever Supriya went, little by little, the bowl got filled. Sometimes an old grandmother would fill it with rice. Sometimes children would give up their sweets for the day. Often others would join Supriya with their bowls and help take the food to the people who needed it. And sometimes, it is said, when Supriya was tired of walking, the young child would rest in the shade of the banyan tree. Supriya would awake to find the bowl had magically filled. "Now," said Supriya, "the hungry will eat, and the people of this town will take care of each other." And so they did. Thank you, Melanie. We will now have a choral anthem by our own UUFOM virtual choir, "I Have a Dream" with "We Shall Overcome," arranged by Ruth Elaine Schramm, accompanied by JJ Treadway, audio video mixing by Sarah Nuss Warren, and organized by Sandy Hay.
I have a dream of liberty. I
Thank you to our virtual choir. For those who are not familiar with them, those photos are of our fellowship commemorating the 400,000 people in our country who died to COVID, commemorating them last month. We are, of course, up to 500,000 today. But thank you to our choir for that lovely and charming work. I invite you now to center yourselves and enter into a time of reflection, meditation, or prayer. Today's meditation, To Keep Moving Forward, is by the Reverend Gretchen Haley. She begins with this quote by Octavia Butler: "All that you change, all that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change." Will you pray with me now? We need a prayer for all the stuck places. The stuck places in us, in our bodies, our hearts, our minds. We need a prayer for the stuck places in our families and in our world. For all those days when it feels like everything is caught in an endless loop of same and status quo and sterility. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. Those are words from thousands of years ago, the book of Ecclesiastes. But they still ring true. What has been is what will be, and what has been is what will be done. What has been done is what will be done. Spirit of truth, this is our prayer. Help us to get over ourselves. Help us to release the restrictions that fear and grief and white supremacy have on our imaginations. Open us to the holy possibilities that are available to us in this moment and in every moment. Connect us to the change that is everywhere. The change that is in the dirt, the change that is in the trees, the change that is in the rocks, in the river, and in the yellow squash flower. And the once in 6,000 years appearance of flying stars that we barely manage to catch a glimpse of now. But we do. Connect us to our own power, the shifting plates of our hearts, the ancient dust we contain and shed with each breath, each step, and tend still to the grief of all that has been lost. Tend to our grief and all we keep losing, the unfair choices, the no good options we find ourselves with. Give us the courage to wail in anger so that we can make space in our lungs for a new song, a lullaby for all that is being born in this great and living darkness, the shadows of surprise and surrender, all that readies in us and in Dr. King's still worthy dream of beloved community. To change, to be changed, to know it all as God. God is change. We give thanks for this. We call out with thanks for this. We sing out praises and gladness for this. That we can wake up to this world again. That we can wake up to its beauty, its possibility. That we can keep on getting into good trouble, necessary trouble, like the prophet John Lewis said. We praise and give thanks that we have the strength, and most of all, that we have the company to keep moving forward, eyes open into the dawning day. Amen. Blessed be. Shannon will share our readings for today.
What a great reminder. Thank you, Eric. Our readings today are two excerpts. The first is from remarks made by Pulitzer and Nobel Prize winner Toni Morrison at Portland State University on May 30th, 1975. The function, the very serious function of racism is distraction. Keeps you from doing your work. It keeps you from explaining over and over again your reason for being. Somebody says you have no language, and you spend 20 years proving that you do. Somebody says your head isn't shaped properly, so you have scientists working on the fact that it is. Somebody says you have no art, so you dredge that up. Somebody says you have no kingdoms, so you dredge that up. None of this is necessary. There will always be one more thing. The second reading is a description of what Dr. Martin Luther King meant by the term beloved community. It comes from the Atlanta-based King Center, which carries on the legacy and work of Dr. King. More info is available at thekingcenter.org. The beloved community, as described by Dr. King, is a global vision in which all people can share in the wealth of the earth. In the beloved community, poverty, hunger, and homelessness will not be tolerated because international standards of human decency will not allow it. Racism and all forms of discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice will be replaced by an all-inclusive spirit of sisterhood and brotherhood. In the beloved community, international disputes will be resolved by peaceful conflict resolution and reconciliation of adversaries instead of military power. Love and trust will triumph over hatred. Peace with justice will prevail over war and military conflict. Let's now share in an interlude, Come Sunday by Duke Ellington, played for us today by Melanie Willison. Come Sunday, considered a jazz standard, is included in our traditional hymnal. Written in 1942, it is the first part of a suite entitled Black, Brown, and Beige, which Ellington wrote for a performance at Carnegie Hall in 1943. His prayer in the piece requests, "O dear Lord above, God Almighty, God of love, please look down and see my people through."
Thank you, Melanie. I love Unitarian Universalism. I would not have returned to the calling of ministry in my 50s if I didn't. And yet there are also things I just don't like about it. For example, too often we use claims some kind of exceptionalism, including me. We're the first denomination to do this, or we're the best at that, or we have more of these kinds of people than any other tradition. The reality is, we are just as susceptible as any other faith tradition to be biased and to further institutional oppression. So we need to get over ourselves. The myth of Unitarian Universalist exceptionalism needs to change. I recently learned the sad news that another of my colleagues of color, just months ago, a friend of mine, had to make the heartbreaking choice to leave their congregation. They could no longer tolerate the micro and macro aggressions being directed at them. This is just months after moving their family halfway across the country. And I say another of my colleagues of color because this kind of thing has happened repeatedly for many, many years. I'd like to recommend a book to you that I have just started reading myself by author Reverend Mark Morrison Reed, called Darkening the Doorways, Black Trailblazers and Missed Opportunities in Unitarian Universalism. From it, I gleaned this story. When African-American minister named William Jackson declared his conversion from baptism to Unitarian in New Bedford, Massachusetts in 1860, he received the cold shoulder. He attended at that time the American Unitarian Association's Autumn Convention, made up of luminaries such as Reverends William Greenleaf Eliot, Edward Everett Hale, and James Freeman Clark. When Jackson entered the meeting, he was given, quote, an ill-kept stranger's seat by the side of the organ, end quote. There he sat, listening as white male ministers and lay leaders proclaimed the need to revive existing Unitarian churches, to invest in new ones, serving the rich and the poor, and to adopt a mission to preach the gospel far and wide, including in the recently settled lands in the West. Jackson knew several white abolitionists who happened to be Unitarians. He agreed with the need to use reason in religion, and in the universality of Jesus. He addressed the sea of white faces, described his experience as a Black pastor, professed his conversion to Unitarianism, and asked for financial support for a small but growing, predominantly African-American liberal congregation. While individual Unitarians openly supported Jackson, the AUA did not. Those gathered that day took up a collection for him and sent him away. He remained a Baptist minister for the rest of his life. I spoke last week about accepting truths, difficult truths, about how our words and deeds can affect others. Here's a truth. Despite our best efforts and intentions, racism, along with all other forms of oppression, is alive and well within Unitarian Universalism. And the corollary truth is that it is our responsibility to change that. I don't know if racism has a single function, as Toni Morrison described. Certainly, one effect of racism is distraction. But I trust her life experience and perspective on this issue more than my own, and I prefer to center that voice. Racism, she says, keeps all of us from doing the work we need to do. No one should have to spend decades of time and energy to explain and justify their reason for being. No one should have to argue and prove that, yes, they do have a language and art and history. No one should have to waste precious minds and resources to prove that, yes, their head is shaped properly. All of this is unnecessary, Morrison wrote. It is all distraction from doing the work of paying attention to our relationships and fixing the sources of injustice in this world. It is a distraction from the aspiration that is beloved community. It's as if I'm walking my dog to obedience class, where there are all kinds of dogs in the park, learning to be better dogs, and owners learning to be better owners. We're walking along a fairly straightforward path through the woods, though it does have some bumps and ruts. When a squirrel dashes out of the trees, it runs across the trail and back into the brush. Naturally, the dog follows, and me with it. The squirrel has distracted us from our goal of becoming the best dog and dog owner that we can be. Racism keeps us from taking the necessary steps to reach our goal of beloved community. I turned to one of the foundations carrying on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy, the King Center in Atlanta, for a more detailed description of beloved community. The term was first coined in the early 20th century by the philosopher-theologian Josiah Royce, who founded the Fellowship of Reconciliation. Dr. King also was a member of that group, and he popularized the term and gave it deeper meaning. As you heard in our second reading, the beloved community is a global vision in which all people can share in the wealth of the earth, where poverty, hunger, and homelessness simply will not be tolerated anywhere on earth. Quote, for King, racism and all forms of discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice will be replaced by an all-inclusive spirit of siblinghood. International disputes will be resolved peacefully and adversaries will be reconciled. Love and trust will triumph over fear and hatred. And peace with justice will prevail over war and military conflict. Our virtual choir sang of this vision, this dream of Dr. King's and many others, a dream of liberty and equality, of friendship and of peace, in which we can overcome the differences as we live as one. If we share this dream, we will find a way. But the King Center also had this to say. Quote, for Dr. King, the beloved community was not a lofty utopian goal to be confused with the rapturous image of the peaceable kingdom in which lions and lambs coexist in idyllic harmony. Rather, the beloved community was for him a realistic, achievable goal that could be attained by a critical mass of people committed to and trained in the philosophy and methods of nonviolence, end quote. I too hope it is achievable, but it's a long way from here to there. A lot needs to change. Our assumptions, our biases, our economics, our institutions, and so much more. The Reverend Gretchen Haley in today's meditation quoted Octavia Butler's poem, which said, all that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change, and God is change. Reverend Haley went on to invite us into a spirit of reverence, to recognize and be mindful of those stuck places within us, those areas of resistance and hesitancy that must change. She then asked the Spirit of Life to help us get over ourselves, to release the restrictions that fear and grief and white supremacy have kept on our imaginations. She reminded us of the inevitability of the only lasting truth, the change that is everywhere. She invited us to reconnect to the power that lies in our hearts, to tend to our grief and all we keep losing, the unfair choices, the no good options we find ourselves with. She spoke of Dr. King's still worthy dream of beloved community. Reverend Haley then invited us to be grateful for the power to change and to be changed, to change and be changed, that we might wake up to the beauty and possibility of this world, that we might keep on getting into good, necessary trouble. She prayed for gratitude that we have the strength and most of all that we have the company of one another to keep moving forward. Whether you are a praying person or not, the tasks before us will require humility, sacrifice, and determination. It is good to be part of such a congregation as this, as we make this journey together. If we hope for our living tradition of Unitarian Universalism to remain relevant in the world and to future generations, we will have to embrace such change. It will be required of us to reach that land for which we are bound. And the future will depend in part on what we do. On decisions we make about who we are and want to be, about how we best serve our little corner of the world. Big, important work. I've mentioned the 8th Principle Project before. It's a long overdue and badly needed new principle for Unitarian Universalism, proposed by the Black Lives of UU organizing collective. It reads as follows. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. This new principle would inject into our national UU covenant the ideas of diversity, multiculturalism, accountability, and an openly anti-racist commitment to which we would have to live up to. Adopting it would be one step in serving justice, being more welcoming of persons of color, and remaining relevant in a world that has changed a lot since the principle's last revision in 1985, 36 years ago. The proposed eighth principle has not yet been adopted by our association. It may come up for a vote at General Assembly in 2022. In the meantime, about 24 individual congregations out of about 1,000 have adopted it, and our fellowship could be among them. I want to acknowledge that we and our board of directors have a lot to do. We have our hands full. We are coping with the pandemic and are planning on revising our vision, mission, covenant statements, and strategic plan. I would nonetheless support the eighth principle's adoption either as a congregation or nationally when we are able. Regardless of our actions, hope awaits at every turn, and we will go on. The dream still lives, and it lives in us. As we wait for immunizations, economic relief, and social stability, we still have agency to work for the common good. We must be the dream. We must help see the people through. Strive for love and accountability, for nonviolent reconciliation and shared liberation. These are things that our Unitarian Universalist faith already calls us to be and to do. We can be guided by people like Dr. King and many others, and by stories like Supriya's Bowl. As hard times sap people's bodies and spirits, we can heed the Buddha's call and be inspired by Supriya's example. And what we discover in doing that work will be amazing. The Reverend Shelley Thompson shared this recently in ministerial circles. Quote, one of our wise colleagues, Reverend Victoria Safford, said, the goal of beloved community is reconciliation. Not to destroy your opponent nor cast them out, but to stay in the struggle till love wins. I, Reverend Thompson, think we should add Victoria Safford's bit to the Blake covenant, today's chalice lighting. Love is the spirit of this church and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, to help one another, and to stay in the struggle till love wins. So let us stay in the struggle till love wins. We need not be exceptional to do the right thing. Let us continue loving this faith and working for its reform. Let us continue forward into a dawning day. Let us commit ourselves to building a new way and finding together that land of freedom and justice. May we find beauty in one another and in the stranger, in this congregation and beyond. May we be the beauty of beloved community, and may we be the dream together. Blessed be, and amen.
Thank you, Eric. We affirm the work of this fellowship and its mission with our time, talent, and treasure. We continue to rely on you paying your pledges and providing what you would otherwise drop in the collection plate. Please give as generously as you can, and may what you give bring you joy. Thank you for your generosity. Let's share now in an offertory, I Know I Can, with music written in 1960 by Jeannie Gagne, played for us today by Melanie. I Know I Can is from our supplemental hymnal. The words were written by Dennis Hamilton in 1944. The hymn ends with conviction in the words, when hope awaits at every turn, I know we will go on. Thank you, Melanie. Now with your mics muted, please join Melanie and Eric in singing our closing hymn, Come and Go With Me, an African-American spiritual arranged by Kenny Smith.
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound.
Thank you, Melanie. Our closing words today are by Reverend James Vila Blake and Reverend Victoria Safford. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, to help one another, and to stay in the struggle till love wins. Thank you to everyone who helped make this service possible today, including this week's document editor, Susan Meyer, and video editor, Dan Seeley. And thank you all for joining us today. We invite you to stay to chat if you can. Whatever you may encounter in the coming week, please know that the love of this community goes with you. Until we're together again, many blessings. And Connie will now share more information about supporting our fellowship.